And you know, God bless Dre. I love Dre. You know, we love Dre. But man, he would do something, and you know, I was just waiting for it. And you know, Dawn would be like, I don't know, Dre. Did you look at that other picture that I sent you? And this happened several times. This wasn't like once or twice. I mean, this happened a lot. But you know, Dre was so kind-hearted and so good-hearted about it, and he understood what it meant to be accurate and, you know, to get that okay from Dawn. And so he worked really hard to make sure that whatever he was drawing was in the same vein, the inspirations of all the pictures that Dawn had put as inspiration for just one page. So each page of this book had pictures that absolutely aligned with whatever was happening, and it was all Dawn.
So this finished product, Jesse, do you want to?
Can I just add
Yeah,
up?
absolutely.
Yes. Okay, I just want to add up about Dre as our illustrator. Again, I'm repeating myself, but Gail said that you guys needed Dawn's validation, and each drawing from this book comes from a research that Dawn had actually done for the shirt that Modern Larry uses, the frames, the hat, the smile, everything is coming from an actual photo. And Dawn, she just wants to make sure that, you know, it's close to being accurate. And that's why Gail was mentioning that they just keep going back and forth until everybody is happy and they're all on the same page. So that's how hard it was. And we love Dre. We love Dre so much.
And if you guys notice, he actually layered real photographs underneath the pictures here. So if you look hard enough, you will notice that these are real. There's real, if you look during the vote on page 28, what's that? You know, you see a real picture there.
Oh yeah, in the background, that's right.
So he layered it, and there's another one where there was Stockton, where they had the community center bombed there. They even have the contract here, if you're looking on page 36. There's a real contract there. So we layered it.
This is, I think, a nice moment, maybe, Gail, if there's a favorite passage that you'd like to read that demonstrates the narrative for the students or folks in the room who don't have the book yet, or maybe who haven't had the pleasure of reading it yet. Is there a favorite passage that you'd like to share to get us to think about the story that's being told here?
You know, I really like, I'm going to read 2 pages, 19 and 20, because I think this is something that happens to all of us, right? It's in our own character development as humans and just as people. But there comes a point in our life where we are pained, where there is some real conflict and some real turmoil in who we are as people. And just like characters in movies and stories, your favorite books and novels, there is a point where you have to decide as a person, am I going to stay the same or am I going to change? And so for each of us, you can pinpoint that, right? Or, you know, or maybe it's going to be in the future for those who are younger. You haven't gone through that, but you will go through that, whether you decide, you know, and that is a story. Some people, you might decide to stay the same. And that is your story. That is how the path that you're going to choose. So I'm going to pick what I really, one of my favorites is that point in this book where we imagined where Larry had to make that decision for himself. Larry's heart ached with sadness and anger at so much injustice all around him. When it seemed that life could not get any worse for Larry and his friends, the U.S. Congress passed 2 laws, one right after the other, aimed at Filipinos. One law barred almost all Filipino immigrants from entering the United States. The other law, called the Repatriation Act, offered Filipinos a one-way ticket home to the Philippines, but they could never return. Only about 2,000 Filipinos took the tickets. Feeling disappointed and defeated, they packed their bags, wore their best clothes, and boarded ships at the ports of San Francisco, Los Angeles, and Seattle. Meanwhile, Larry's friend, Carlos Bulasan, was writing a book about the Filipino experience in the United States. In the book, he wrote, "In many ways, it was a crime to be a Filipino in California. Filipinos could not become citizens, nor could they vote, own land, or marry whites. They were being treated like criminals in a land that they had once been taught was the greatest country on earth." Larry had a decision to make. Should he take the free ticket and go back to San Nicolas? He closed his eyes and imagined the waterfalls and the green mountains of his quiet village. He thought of his parents and his childhood sweetheart. Larry began to write a letter to his childhood friend. "I'm sorry, but I'm not coming home," he wrote. His heart felt heavy as he explained that he had a new dream. He was staying in America. He wanted to be a labor organizer, someone who inspired his fellow workers to join together into a union that fights for their rights. Larry wasn't sure if he could ever become a lawyer, but he could still help people get justice. He was going to stay.
Well, that passage, I think, also captures the larger history, right, of Filipinos in this country, right? The struggles that they've had with immigration laws, being a transnational subject on two sides of the ocean. Why has it taken, in your view, so long for the story of Filipino Americans, the story of their contributions to the American labor movement, to be told in a way where they get the kind of recognition that they deserve?
So Jesse, I don't know if you had conversations with Don about this, I'm sure.
Sure.
But one of the first times when we met about the book, I was like, "Girl, you better tell me the truth." I said, "Why do you think this has been hidden? How come there's no book about Larry Itliong? I mean, you know, this is kind of ridiculous." I mean, and so we had a talk. And she said, "You know what? I really think it's the perfect storm. It's a perfect storm of many different things that were happening. One, he didn't write a book. So there was, people talk about Philip Veracruz in the UFW. It was because he wrote a book. And so people could teach it and they could read it. Larry didn't write a book. Another one was, he had done interviews and it wasn't like he wasn't talking and people were interviewing him, but they weren't, the media wasn't forwarding that narrative. They weren't using that. So he wasn't on or being featured. And another one was, it was an aging workforce. Filipinos at that time were aging, and John had an idea that maybe the media did not want to film or put on camera this aging workforce because it wasn't sexy, it wasn't going to have viewership, it wasn't newsworthy enough. You've got these old men who are fighting and and so she said it was a perfect storm of many different things that were happening. And another one, which I talked to Dylan Delvo from Little Manila a few days ago, because we were talking about this again. And you guys will probably talk about it once you leave here. Like, my gosh, why did it take so long? And it really comes down to the Filipino American community too. Like, we did not take it upon ourselves earlier to demand for this story. I mean, there are many people who knew about this story. I mean, there are many people that witnessed Larry speaking and leading the Delano grape strike and even being there with him and other strikes that he had done. I mean, he was organizing throughout his whole life. The Delano grape strike was not the one thing that he did. I mean, what people don't realize is that Filipino Americans were fighting for a very long time. By the time the Delano grape strike happened, they were already doing strikes and walkouts, for decades already. And so it really is also on our community to really value and find the worth in these stories and demand them, to want to see them, and to have to give support to people who are telling them, and to give our children the freedom to want to tell these stories. I think there was one thing that we were talking about that Dylan was saying is that, whenever he goes and talks, he talks to students all the time, and he asks them what they want to do, what's their career path, and where they're going to go after they graduate, and they all tell him that they want to be nurses. And he says, "Well, why do you want to be a nurse?" And they tell him, oh, because it pays good money, I'll be able to, have a family, I can buy a house, and it's a really commercial things that you could do with money. And so he asks them, and he says, wait a minute, you don't want to be a nurse because you want to heal people? Isn't that one of the first things, like, you want to go in the medical field because you want to heal people, not because of X, Y, and Z. And so I think that it's upon us as a community to be able to want to support our children in the ways that they want to grow in their own individuality so that they could carry on this work into the next generation. And so that's why, myriad of things why this story didn't come out. We all came here as service workers, the population of Filipino Americans. So, we're told work faster, you work faster. We're told that these are the best outfits and the best suits, then we're gonna dress 10 times better than you. I'm gonna have a better bag than everybody in this room. Or, I'm gonna have like the latest suit. Like, we were talking about the Manongs, about why they had dressed so snazzy and why they looked so good. And it was because we were given this idea, like, this is how you look good. This is what you do to dress up and you go dancing. Well, Filipinos are going to do that 10 times better. Is it a colonial mentality? And so we go out and we buy the best things, or we go out and do these things. And so it's just, you do that and we can do it 10 times better than you, but we have to also look into ourselves as a community and find our souls. I mean, you can still do things the best. I mean, I'm sorry, but I love bags, so, I've got 4 kids though, so I'm on a budget. But we still have that mentality, but we also still have to understand that it's our soul, the Filipino American community soul, that we need to look deep into and support the next generation so they continue on in this work and ask for these stories. It really is the mixture of us never asking for these stories to be done, and since we don't ask, we just get forgotten.
Jesse, would you like to answer this question about why the story of Larry Itliong has really taken so long to be told properly, or how Dawn thought about that issue?
I would have the same answer as Gail.
Okay.
Same information. It was just like never introduced when she was, like Dawn, from her opinion, there's stories between conversations that it was never, introduced to her.
Mm-hmm.
She was young. Even for college, like she has to find out from books. And like what Gail said, I guess modern Larry, didn't write his own book.
Mm-hmm.
So the books were not around in schools. So, also the community